Emisión.net.
Hello again and welcome to Letter from England, broadcasting for AC Press and the Spanish Evangelical Alliance. Looking at the news in Spain and about Spain, particularly from an evangelical perspective, from afar. Looking at the current situation in the evangelical church in Spain from abroad, as it were, I believe the church is at a crossroads. This has to do with the decision by the Spanish government to come to an agreement with the Roman Catholic Church to continue financing it, and the very contrasting and varied responses to that agreement from the evangelical community. The rather murky world of negotiation between the government and the Catholic Church over the latter's financing reached its conclusion recently. The Church will receive 31 million more euros this year, though the fixed top-up will no longer be guaranteed. For those of you unfamiliar with the situation in Spain, the state pays out a vast amount of money to support the Church, but specifically allows, through a charitable concession on people's tax returns, people to designate a very small percentage actually of their tax to one of two charitable concerns, either to the Roman Catholic Church or to a set of, at least on the form, unspecified non-governmental organisations or charities. The percentage has been 0.52% since 1987. But the government has just agreed to raise it to 0.7%, a compromise figure as predicted actually by AC Press, because the bishops were asking for 0.82%. However, a mitigating factor is the removal of various VAT exemptions, something which has been forced on the Spanish government by the European Union, unhappy at the preferential fiscal treatment that the Roman Catholic Church was receiving. And the Roman Catholic Church can no longer count on receiving an established minimum or a fixed minimum payment, but the amount is rather to be tied to the number of people who tick that box on their tax returns, apportioning that percentage to their church. Now, the major concern for the Roman Catholic Church has to be that not enough of their members are actually taking this tax option, and it shows that the so-called religious tax, originally introduced by the socialist government back in 1987 as a temporary 3-year measure, has failed miserably. The temporary measure has lasted 19 years and displeased many. The latest agreement, though, moves away from the model by which the Roman Catholic Church was supposed to become financially self-sufficient over a period of time. Well, while the bishops were complaining at the rejection of the historic model of VAT exemption and guaranteed payments, others were pointing out that the Roman Catholic Church should abide by the same rules as everybody else, and that actually they will make up for any loss through the percentage increase. And there is the suspicion, really, that the government has taken it away with one hand and given it back with the other. According to calculations made by the head of finance of the Barcelona Archbishopric, the government subsidy will go up in 2006 from 144 million euros to 175 million. And quite apart from this tax break, as I mentioned earlier, the state finances the Catholic Church each year to the tune of, quote, more than 3,000 million euros, according to the government's own figures. Independent analysts suggest the figure might be nearer double this, covering such activities as education, health or social work carried out by Catholics. Then there are the salaries of the 15,000 Catholic RE teachers, 1,000 chaplains in prisons, hospitals and military bases. And then regional authorities also cough up tens of millions of euros each year to look after Catholic Church buildings and other properties. And all this in a country which officially has a church-state separation, is a non-confessional and lay state. Well, whilst all this was going on, evangelicals, of course, have begun to receive some money through the Federation, the FEDERE, the Federation of Evangelical Organizations, for cultural and social projects, along with Jews and Muslims as the three other officially recognized historic religions in Spain. Well, Pandora's box is well and truly open, because the government agreement with the Catholic Church over financing has got other religious groups, sadly, from my perspective anyway, including some evangelicals, clamouring for a slice of the pie. From next year, as we've said, the Catholic Church will stop receiving a guaranteed amount, and it will depend upon the response of its members, at least in the case of the money given through the general budget, to the charity option on their annual tax returns. Riay Tatare, president of the Union of Spanish Islamic Communities, says religious minorities in Spain should start discussions with the government aimed at achieving equality of treatment, which ends what he calls discrimination and second-class status compared with the Catholic Church. Closer to home, meanwhile, the Executive Secretary of the Federation of Spanish Evangelical Organizations, Mariano Blasquez, says the state financing of the Catholic Church is a privilege exclusive to the Catholic Church, which enshrines inequality and discrimination, which is outside the framework of the Constitution. But is it not outside that same framework, then, for evangelicals to ask for money from the state? In one of the most surprising, perhaps even bizarrest declarations to emanate from an evangelical institution in Spain, the Federation, which represents the vast majority of Spanish Protestants, has issued a statement, quote, congratulating the government and the Catholic Church on the agreement reached. The Federation believes the new arrangement is fairer and adds that it should be extended to the other religious groups which have signed agreements with the government, and that, naturally enough, includes the Federation for Protestants. Such support is bound to be tremendously controversial within the evangelical world, and the Federation have said that the remarks made by their Executive Secretary were not necessarily quoted accurately in a secular press. That's why they put out a statement in which they clarified their position. Well, the only obvious reason why the Federation should be pleased at an agreement which perpetuates the privileged position of the Catholic Church is surely the chance that the government will improve its package towards Protestants and other religious minorities. They hope that the agreement made with the Catholic Church will improve relations between that institution and the government, and undoubtedly, they say, have a positive spin-off on the rest of society. Quite what that spin-off will be remains to be seen. And they stress that other religious groups, recognized groups, including themselves, should be offered the same, or at least a similar fiscal privilege. However, the Federation has the delicate task of presenting such an idea to the churches to see if they are in agreement or not, and that agreement is certainly no foregone conclusion. Meanwhile, the Federation has stated its intention to abide by the principle of church-state separation, though clearly this means different things to different people, and not to accept money for activities connected to worship. In fact, the government has refused to give money for that thus far, though as worship covers everything that a Christian is involved in, that's a rather ambiguous definition anyway. Well, while the Federation, on the one hand, has been so enthusiastic about the arrangement, the Spanish Evangelical Alliance has stated a completely contrary position and is very critical, saying the ideal scenario would be that no public money were given to religious groups simply because they exist. Alliance spokesman and AC Press Director Pedro Tarquis told Cadena SER News, the radio news program with the highest audience figure in Spain, that whilst he understood the concept of state support for social or cultural projects, his belief is that religious groups should refuse to receive public money from the state. Tarquis thinks the ideal model for keeping church-state separation a reality, as the Spanish Constitution sets out, is for every religious group and the organizations which represent them to be self-supporting. He says the current arrangement is a botch which perpetuates a bad model of financing and which will provoke similar calls for aid from other religious confessions. The statement does accept that the state could support projects which help society, such as helping the needy, or strictly cultural events. But even then, though, the Alliance believes the money should be given for the project's sake and not because it is a religious activity. Although they accept that, they believe that church life should remain well away from any kind of dependence upon government. And the statement concludes by saying the Alliance should encourage policies which stimulate church members to give and support their churches and organisations. Well, I have to say, in conclusion, that I'm very concerned at the turn of events. The danger, the temptation even, of being offered money by the government is that some form of dependence will be created. Church leaders may well be distracted as they seek to go through all the administrative and bureaucratic hoops necessary to actually bring the money on board. The definitions of worship and social and cultural projects may well become blurred. And should the church be receiving money from the state anyway? One thing is for a government to support what may be called a faith-based social project, but churches really, the whole principle of giving, churches should be self-supporting. And I fear that the agreement made with the Catholic Church, receiving such an enthusiastic welcome, even congratulations, from the Protestant Federation, will only cloud the issue as far as evangelicals are concerned. And at the Spanish Evangelical Alliance, the feeling seems to be much clearer that church and state separation needs to be strengthened and not diluted by such agreements. Thank you for listening to Letter from England, broadcasting each week on emission.net, and goodbye for now.
Emisión.net